I saw something at the local gun shop yesterday that honestly made my blood boil. There was a salesman, young guy, tactical beard, looked like he played a lot of video games, trying to sell a featherweight scandium frame .357 Magnum to a woman who had to be at least 75 years old. She had visible arthritis in her hands. She was trembling, just holding the credit card. And this guy was telling her, "It's light, ma'am. You won't even feel it in your purse." That is not just bad advice. That is negligence. If she ever has to pull that trigger in a panic, that gun is going to fly out of her hand or break her wrist, and the bad guy is going to laugh at her. Aging is a reality. Your grip strength isn't what it was when you were 30. Your eyes aren't as sharp. Your reaction time has slowed down. Physics does not care about your ego, and it definitely doesn't care about what the guy behind the counter is trying to upsell you. We are going to break down the 5 biggest, most dangerous traps that seniors fall into when buying a defensive firearm. These aren't just oops moments. These are mistakes that leave you defenseless when the door gets kicked in. We are counting them down from the common misconceptions to the #1 error that will get you hurt. Let's clear the air. Mistake number 5, the pocket pistol trap. There is this logic that seems to make sense on paper. I am getting older, my hands are getting weaker, so I should buy a smaller, lighter gun. It sounds right, doesn't it? A small gun looks harmless. It looks manageable. But physics is a cruel mistress. When you fire a round, that energy has to go somewhere. If you are holding a heavy 2-pound chunk of steel, the mass of the gun absorbs a huge chunk of that recoil. The gun does the work for you. But when you buy that featherweight, subcompact .380 that weighs less than your smartphone, the gun absorbs nothing. Every ounce of that explosion travels straight through the frame and slams directly into the web of your hand. I took a retired school teacher to the range last month. She brought this tiny pink micro-compact pistol her son bought for her. She fired one shot. Just one. She set it down, rubbed her wrist, and said, "I am never touching that again." For a senior with arthritis or carpal tunnel, these mouse guns are not defensive tools. They are torture devices. You trade carry comfort for shooting pain. And here is the brutal truth. If shooting your gun hurts, you aren't going to practice. And if you don't practice, when the moment comes, you are just making noise, not defending your life. Stop looking for the smallest thing in the case. Look for the thing you can actually hold on to when it goes bang. Mistake number 4, the slide struggle. I see this constantly. A son wants to buy his dad a gun, so he picks out a standard 9mm semi-automatic. Maybe a Glock, maybe a SIG. He hands it to his dad at the range. Dad tries to load the first round, and he physically cannot pull the slide back. Modern semi-automatics rely on stiff recoil springs to function. To charge that weapon, you need what we call the push-pull technique. You need grip strength in your support hand and stability in your strong hand. If you have arthritis or just weaker tendons from age, racking that slide feels like trying to open a jar of pickles that has been glued shut. But it gets worse. Let's say you manage to get around in the chamber. When you fire a semi-auto, you have to hold the frame rigid. If your wrist is loose, what we call limp wristing, the slide won't cycle all the way back. The empty shell gets stuck. The gun jams. Now you have a stovepipe jam. To clear it, you have to rip that slide back aggressively. If you struggled to load it when you were calm, how in the world are you going to clear a complicated malfunction when your heart is hammering at 180 beats per minute? I watched a gentleman in his 80s trying to qualify for his carry permit with a 1911. Every second shot was a malfunction, because his wrists just couldn't lock out against the recoil. He was fighting the gun more than the target. If you cannot manipulate the mechanism of your weapon with wet, sweaty, shaking hands, it is not a weapon. It is a paperweight. Don't let anyone talk you into a system you have to wrestle with. Mistake number 3. The gadget trap. I have seen seniors buy guns that have more levers and switches than a cockpit. They get sold a DASA pistol with a slide-mounted decocker, a manual thumb safety, and a grip safety. Here is the science of violence. When you get scared, truly, life or death scared, your IQ drops about 50 points instantly. Your vision tunnels, your hearing shuts off, and most importantly, you lose your fine motor skills. Your hands turn into flippers. You can grasp, but you can't manipulate tiny little buttons. If your defense plan requires you to wake up at 2 a.m., find your glasses, realize you are under attack, and then remember to flip a tiny lever up, or was it down, before the gun will fire. You are setting yourself up for failure. I ran a scenario training once with an older gentleman. Great guy, retired engineer, very smart. He had a pistol with a manual thumb safety. I yelled, "Threat!" He drew the gun. He pointed it perfectly. He pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. He pulled it again. Nothing. He stared at the gun, confused, trying to figure out why it was broken. In a real fight, he would have been overwhelmed right there. He forgot to disengage the safety because his brain was focused on the threat, not the tool. For seniors, simple is not just better. Simple is survival. You want a point-and-click interface. Revolvers are great for this. Striker-fired guns with no manual safety are great for this. Don't buy a Rubik's Cube to defend your life. Buy a light switch. Mistake number 2. The stopping power delusion. There is a myth that refuses to die. It says that if you are old and can't move fast, you need a gun that hits like a freight train to end the fight in one shot. So you see seniors buying .357 Magnums, .44 Specials, or .45 ACPS. They think, I might only get one shot off, so it better count. Here is the cold, hard reality. Handguns are terrible at stopping threats instantly. Unless you hit the central nervous system, a determined attacker can soak up rounds from a .44 Magnum and still have 15 seconds of fight left in them. In the real world, you don't shoot once. You shoot until the threat stops. That means you need rapid, accurate follow-up shots. I watched a grandfather at the range with a snub-nosed .357 Magnum, a classic Dirty Harry fantasy. He fired the first shot. The recoil was so violent, the gun ended up pointing at the ceiling tiles. It took him 4 full seconds to wrestle that gun back down and find the target again. In a hallway fight, 4 seconds is an eternity. You are dead 3 times over in 4 seconds. And worse, he developed a flinch. By the 3rd round, he was closing his eyes and jerking his head back before he even pulled the trigger because his body was anticipating the pain. If you are afraid of your own gun, you will miss. Period. For a senior, a .38 Special with mild wad cutters, or even a .22 Magnum that you can put 6 rounds into a grapefruit-sized circle in 2 seconds, is infinitely deadlier than a .357 Magnum that hits the drywall. Stop buying caliber. Buy control. Mistake number 1. The blind date purchase. This happens every single day. A senior walks into a gun store. They look at the display case. They point a few guns at the wall. The grip feels okay. The salesman says it's a bestseller. So they buy it, buy a box of ammo, take it home, load it, and put it in the nightstand. And they never fire a single live round through it until the night someone breaks in. That is insanity. You would not buy a car without test driving it to see if you can reach the pedals. You wouldn't buy a pair of hiking boots without walking around the store to see if they pinch your toes. So why are you trusting your life to a mechanical explosion you have never felt? I knew a lady, lived alone. She bought a lightweight .38 revolver because everyone told her it was simple. She never shot it because she was intimidated by the noise at the indoor range. Years later, she had a prowler. She grabbed the gun. When she tried to pull the trigger, she couldn't do it. The double-action trigger pull on that specific revolver was 12 pounds. Her arthritis meant her index finger could only pull about 8 pounds. She was holding a paperweight. She was helpless. If she had rented that gun at a range before buying it, she would have known in 5 seconds that it was the wrong tool. This is my command to you. Do not buy a gun until you have rented it and put 50 rounds through it. I don't care if the reviews are great. I don't care if it's what the Navy SEALs use. If you can't rack the slide, if you can't see the sights, or if the recoil hurts you, it is the wrong gun. The target tells the truth. The gun store counter lies. Let's wrap this up. Getting older doesn't mean you have to be a victim. It just means you have to be smarter than the 20-year-old kid trying to sell you the latest tactical toy. The perfect gun for a senior is the one that fits your hand, the one you can manipulate in the dark, and the one you can shoot without wincing in pain. It might be a heavy, ugly steel revolver. It might be a .22 Magnum. It might be a boring Glock with a red dot sight. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters that it works for you. Ignore the snobs. Ignore the trends. Listen to your body. I want to hear from the veterans in the audience. Have you ever bought a gun that you ended up hating because it just didn't fit you? What was the worst advice a gun store clerk ever gave you? Drop your stories in the comments. Warn the others. Stay safe. Train smart. I'll see you in the next one.